In this first episode of my new series where I'm trying to make more cinematic videos and telling more stories, and I'm gonna break them down in these videos. So this video is the first in the series, and it's about my scripting or pre-process before anything happens in terms of actually making the video. So what I want to run you through today is my scripting process, my storyboarding, and my shot list. How it all came together, what I wanted to do with this video, and how it ended up at the end. If you haven't watched the video yet, there is a link down in the description, but maybe it's fun to watch this one first, and then you can see the final product afterwards. The reason I'm making this series is because I love to watch the behind the scenes. Now, I'm not a master in neither scripting or editing, and while I might be pretty good at color grading, which we'll also cover in this series, it's also a process for me to learn how to do all of these things and get better. And by analyzing what I'm doing myself and getting better at it at the same time, it's just part of a win-win, and hopefully you get something out of it as well. So let's start with the scripting process. Now, I've never been really good at scripting my videos, and not because I'm not good at writing. I would say decent at writing, but I just always had struggles with putting a lot of time and effort into the pre-process, as I don't really feel like that much is happening when I'm just writing stuff down and I'm not producing anything. And in producing, I mean actually filming something, having something tangible that I can edit, or editing or color grading it where I can see a difference from what I had before and what I ended up with after I've done either the edit or the color grading. Those are the main factors why I haven't put that much time into it. But as I've heard more and more people talk about the importance of scripting and putting more time into getting ideas and making good scripts, I decided that this year is the year where I want to put more focus into that, because overall I want to make better videos, and I've learned and come to realize that that comes a lot into the scripting. So let's dive into how I went about scripting my video. First of all, my initial idea with this Cutting Through Reflections, that was the original title, idea was that we were coming to the end of 2023. And as everyone is approaching their New Year's resolutions, I was thinking, what can I do in terms of reflections? I'm always reflecting throughout the whole year, but what can I reflect back on, and how can I make that a story? A story that I can try to start telling, at the same time telling the story of how I've actually been a little bit afraid of diving more into storytelling myself. So that all kind of came together in a concept, and the way that I get my ideas is usually pretty random. I have either a conversation, a book I read, a YouTube video I watch, or just by going about my day, and I come up with these ideas. I script them down into Notion, and sometimes they become a video and sometimes they don't. This was a particular morning during December, and I just sat down and wrote down the whole concept. I'll show that on screen now, kind of the rough concept that I started out with, that I just scripted. Then I actually left it alone for a couple of weeks, both because of Christmas and New Year's and because of some travel plans, and I didn't really have time to dive into the video itself. And when I dove into it again, I had actually been starting to listen to an audiobook about storytelling and got some inputs for how I could make this video better and how I can tell more of a story rather than what I just had written down in kind of like a concept form. Those key things was plot, character, change, and value. So what is the plot of the whole video? What is the character? Who is he or she? And what mission is this character on? Then there's a change. What change is happening? Because the change is giving us more into storytelling and giving us more curiosity in our brains to follow the story through and see what's going to happen. And then comes value. So after you watch the video, what can you take away for yourself? Those were kind of the 4 key points that I wanted to take with me and try to implement into this. So the next step before I started scripting more was to outline these and say, okay, what are the ideas for this video? What do I want to do? Who's the character? What's the value? What is actually the point of this video, apart from me just wanting to tell my story? Having those aligned and me being the character, struggling with diving into storytelling and telling stories, kind of being scared of telling stories with filmmaking, not being sure if I was good enough. The change was actually going from reflecting a lot upon that throughout the last years to making a difference and actually taking action and just starting to tell stories and do it instead of being scared of doing it, just taking the action. And that's also the value of, instead of just reflecting a lot and not taking action, then actually doing something about it and using those reflections to something productive is the value that I wanted the viewer to take away with this video. Now, into the scripting process, I split the video up into 5 different acts, kind of to give myself a structure, but also to try and tell the story in a format where I could easily break it into what's happening in the different acts. So character introduction, change, value, like those things, how can I build that into a thing? So you'll see the script here, and it's kind of a mix between what the video was going to be and also the voiceover. So the script is more or less the voiceover, but then with interruptions of me in the video actually interrupting the voiceover and speaking there. That was kind of another thing that I wanted to try and implement and play around with to see if that could be fun and that could be something interesting to do as well. I actually rewrote the script a few times because I narrowed it down more and more, and I saw that I had a lot of words and things that I didn't need to have in there, which ended up being so that in the final edit, I actually had too little voiceover, but I wanted it to be a more slow-paced video, leaving the visuals to breathe a little bit and not be too much about retention and viewership and all that, because I'm just practicing telling stories. And while I know it's not the best from the beginning, I'm just trying to get better as well. So I rewrote the script a few times, trying to get it better, trying to narrow down the story and the voiceover that I wanted to tell. And having that, I moved on to the storyboard. Now, the main idea and purpose of the storyboard for me is that I want to be able to show the kind of visuals that I have in my head, or at least similar visuals that I have in my head, to Joya, my girlfriend, who helps me shoot these kinds of videos. So instead of me just trying to tell what's in my head, the images that I have in my head, and trying to get her to understand what I mean, which is quite difficult, not because of her, but because I'm not the best at telling or describing the images that in my head so that others understand them. I'm trying to find pictures that can, frames from other films, commercials, something like that, that can help visualize or put together an idea of what is it that I'm trying to achieve with this scene. Now, I ended up only having some still frames in my storyboard for the first 2 acts, and I never finished it, both because I ran out of time, but also because I had it all in my head. And a lot of the scenes were quite simple and similar to something we'd shot the week before for Joya. So I knew we could get our way around getting something that looked good. For the future, I want to put more time into the storyboarding, and I want to have a dedicated time slot to actually sit down and do that and fill it out and put that on there somewhere so that I can actually visualize it. And also, if it takes longer before I come back to the script again, then I have a better idea of what I visualized initially. The last thing was to produce the shot list. And this is something that I've done more than I've done the scripting and the storyboarding, but it's usually been in a very minimal format. And it's usually been when we have shoots for hotels or clients where we really need to know, okay, we need to get these shots so that we're sure that we can put something good together afterwards. So what I did here was that I again split it up into the 5 acts, and then I made sure that I had shots that covered all the angles and all the aspects of the story that I wanted to tell. I knew that when we started shooting, I would want more different angles and we could play around with some different things that I hadn't scripted, but at least this gives me the opportunity to cross it off during the shooting and make sure that I have enough so that I can actually put the edit together afterwards. Now, another important thing here was that I wanted to switch it up so that I went from the voiceover to actually speaking directly to the camera in the film itself. I had to make sure that I have enough clips that were long enough so that I could interrupt the voiceover and the voiceover wouldn't have to cut off or something like that. So I made sure that we had some long takes on all the things that we shot. And from there on, it was pretty smooth sailing. We just shot it, we played around with different angles, with the lighting, and both of us just practiced all of these things as well. Now, the benefit of scripting, storyboarding, and making a shot list is definitely that while it takes more time up front, it makes the rest of the process so much faster. If you have an idea of what you want to shoot, a script written down, and a shot list, it just makes it super easy and convenient when you are starting to film so that you can actually have a list that you can cross off and you have the full idea that you've been meticulously minimizing or putting down into what you want the final product to be. So while I've always felt like it took too long to write something up front and not producing something, I'm seeing the benefits as soon as we start shooting. That's a lot faster than trying to figure out, on the go how to put the story together. It's just so much easier when you already have it lined out. But also in the edit afterwards, when you already have a shot list that you can match it up to, but also just all the shots in a sequence that makes sense, it's so much easier to line everything up. And while you're filming, think about the transitions between them that you can also put into the shot list so that it coherently makes sense that you're moving from scene to scene, place to place, wherever it might be. And that just makes it so much easier to put it all together. So the initial extra time spent up front, I would say I definitely got back in the post-processing because it was so much faster and so much easier to put everything together afterwards. One of the challenges when you're shooting can be to stick to the storyboard and the script and the shot list and not get carried away, or something can happen that makes it so that you can't complete what you intended to do originally. And for me, that's perfectly fine. That's just part of it. And it's good to still have the script and shot list to get back to when you went off trail and then back on the track again so that you can continue from where you were, and also make sure that those shots you got that were not on the shot list, are they either replacing some of the shots that are on the shot list, or do you still need to get those afterwards? Instead of getting carried away and not being sure if you have everything that you need. That's a situation that I've been in far too many times, so this makes it so much easier. Now, in my original scripting, there was one sequence of shots that we didn't get, and that was simply that when I started kind of dreaming and going outside, then I wanted to walk to a cafe and have a cup of coffee. But because we ran out of time and because of some illness, we couldn't shoot that, or we could, but I decided that it was enough to just have the outdoor scenes and then scrap the cafe scenes. It took away a little bit from the video because it's nice to switch things up a little bit, but I was still walking around in a few different scenes. I think that was completely fine. So again, it's fine to, for me at least, to move away from the script and to delete some things if I don't need it. And also we shot this over 2 days because we lost all light in one evening and we kind of wanted everything to match. So we had to shoot everything the next day. And that gave me the opportunity to start editing and figuring out if we had everything we needed, so that the next day when we came back to it, I could actually capture a little bit more if I needed something else, or I got some new ideas from what we had already shot. Here's 10 seconds of the final product. If you haven't watched it already, I encourage you to do that through the link down below. But here's a little snippet so you can get an idea of what we've been talking about in this video so far. I guess analysis has always been part of my personality. Sometimes reflection comes easier than others. If I can't get to the bottom of something, the first solution... So to round off the video, and after showing you my process, I just want to give you a few tips that I've taken with me so far. Now, as you've heard me say a few times already, it saves time on the post-processing if you put more time into the pre-process. Or at least in my case, it did so. But a few ideas or a few tips that has helped me a lot in this first video, and that I'm definitely going to do again the next time, is taking those points of plot, character, change, and value and implement those, making sure that those core values are always in the script and in the video and are focusing around those to make sure that the video actually has a purpose and there is a kind of outcome to it at the end, so that you're not just making a video and then afterwards you're being like, okay, what was the point of that? Instead, you have something that you can always look back to and be like, okay, are we actually on target here? Are we actually providing some value? Are we actually telling a story? Is there any development as a character? And even when it's a short video, these elements, for me at least, are pretty crucial to telling a good story. And it's something that I've only noticed recently or realized recently. So I'm happy that I implemented those. And that's definitely something that I would encourage you to try out for yourself and see if that works for getting your videos and storytelling up to a higher level. I would love to hear if you have any tips or advice, or maybe if you have any struggles that you also have in terms of these things with scripting, then leave them down in the comments below. I love to hear those, both to get better myself, but also maybe to provide some values in the next series or in the comments directly for you if you have any questions that I could help answer. In my coming videos, I'll be covering both the editing and timeline process that I went through when I edited the video, and in a separate video as well, I will be covering the color grading, my thoughts behind that, and how I went through the grade. Kind of to wrap up the whole series in terms of the video itself, the pre-processing, the editing, and the color grading, so you get a whole picture of how the whole process was. This is just the first time I'm doing this. I intend this year to make a lot more in this series. So if you are enjoying it so far, please let me know as well, because that's also always encouraging to keep continuing with these things. And of course, if you have any feedback, you're also welcome to leave that there. With all of that said, I just thank you for watching if you made it all the way to the end. And I hope you learned something from this video or me rambling for however many minutes it was. And I can't wait to share with you the editing and the color grading of this video as well. So stay tuned for those. Remember to subscribe if you're interested in that. And otherwise, I'll just catch you in the next video. Take care.